This is your host Slim bin Mohammed Rafi, and here is my YouTube channel Zamir Universal. Using food, water, starvation, and dehydration, and caging the human beings as a war strategy or policy by Israeli government in Gaza is a heinous crime, worse than Holocaust, worse than any cruelty inflicted upon any mankind in the history of ever since the world came into existence. There hasn't been any other cruel nation who would do this thing to women and children, especially helpless civilians who had nothing to do with combat or with a war. What bothers me is the neighboring Muslim countries like Egypt, like Syria, and Jordan, who share border with Israel, and for even the country who brags about as a leader of the Muslim world, both Mohammed bin Suleiman and the president of Turkey, Erdogan, they are the culprits who are on the day of judgment going to be burnt in the deepest pits of hell if they do not get their aircrafts fly and drop water and food. And if any Israeli aircraft confronts them, shoot it down. Let that be now a lesson to the Israelis that they, as a mankind, as a human being, and I think the WHO should die of shame. The United Nations, FEMA, all those agencies, the NGOs, who talk about human rights, basic human rights, and talk about cruelty, and brag about helping people in during earthquake or during floods in Africa or starvation or famine, they should really commit suicide, and they should see how hypocrite, how bitterly they have failed, and how on earth one small tiny speck on the global map, a rogue and illegitimate and illegally created a small tiny state where you put few bad apples, Jews, who've been thrown out of the whole world 79 times, and you put them in, they fight with small tiny enclosures which they had blocked for 16 long years. And they control the water, they control medicine, they control electricity, and they control any movement by those Gazan peoples. They have spitted and they have swallowed their own spit, declaring that north they fumigate, south is safe. When they go to south, they bomb it. They turn off the water, and I am amazed to see the Foreign Secretary of UK and many other European countries who talk and discuss in their parliament about the crime of turning off water to innocent kids, innocent women, and who've been now thrown out of their countries because they leveled it. They bombed with a carpet bombing and phosphorus bombing. They destroyed all their homes. 2.2 million people displaced. And in this following video, you will see the camps. You will see the people queued up for a drop of water. You will see the people who have no toilets for sanitation, no water to clean them up, nothing to eat, and how they queue up and they are being watched as it's some kind of a entertaining movie for them, and it's some Hollywood epic and not actually happening. It's happening right in front of us in 2023. And the most cruelest nation is right in front. It's not Adolf Hitler who committed suicide, is now buried in the grave, but they are alive. Netanyahu is alive. So is this sleepy Joe Biden. So the criminals are walking around in the world, and they are the one who are insisting to inflict such a cruelty, and the whole world is watching. How can the king of Jordan or the people of Jordan can drink and eat and sleep at night when right next door, about an arm's pace, they can see millions of their fellow men. Leave the religion alone, but they're human beings and they are begging for a drop of water. And I'm amazed at Egypt and the history of the bravery of Egypt from Pharaoh's time when they had that enslaved all these Jews, that they are cowards. So are the Turks and the Syrians and the Russians who were there in Syria. Why aren't they dropping the water and food? Why are they afraid of the Air Force of Israel? When you know that they are committing war crimes, why is the United Nations not sending their aircrafts? And why are there not white carriers carrying the United Nations flag and the World Health Organization and going and feed these people? Where is the food program of the United Nations? Where's the billions and dollars of funds go? Where is the charity? And where are those all organizations who, cry foul? And why aren't they doing it? And my appeal here is to Mohammed bin Sulaiman. What about your billions and dollars worth of yacht and your girlfriend? And to Erdogan, where are
that are barely meeting survival needs, and in fact, in some situations, are not. And they are being bombed even when they're told that they're safe areas. And so we were working on various scenarios to see what will happen in case there is a humanitarian pause, or what happens if the bombing intensifies, particularly in the south. We're also working, and we're sadly waiting for a big infectious disease outbreak. And the response to that is going to be extremely difficult because there isn't enough humanitarian space, meaning we're not really allowed or able to operate, and there's just insufficient water, food, and medicines.
And we know that that is such a likely possibility given all of those factors. Dr. Spiegel, as you were working with people who were trying to maintain medical care within the Gaza Strip, what did they tell you about the situation?
They are devastated in many ways. They can't believe that this is happening and that it's been happening for so long, and yet there has been insufficient aid being allowed in. I've never really experienced this so closely, where we're working with doctors and nurses. They're trying to do their work, but at the same time, they themselves have been displaced multiple times. They have to wait in long queues to get food and water. And then they're also dealing with family members that have been either severely hurt, burned, and or killed. And so they're trying to continue to deliver services in an extraordinary difficult situation.
I want to pick up on something that you just said, Dr. Spiegel. You said you've never really experienced anything like this before. I know that you've responded to several international crises, including Afghanistan and Ukraine. How else is this situation in Gaza really different from other humanitarian missions that you've been on?
Every situation is unique and it's context specific. What I would say is quite different here is, number one, people are not allowed to leave. And so in many other situations, people can move within a country. In this case, Gaza is so small. So they can move to a safe area and or they can leave the country. And that's just not happening here. So people are not able to leave and the bombing is continuing. And then secondly, there at the beginning was a siege where no food and water and medicines were allowed in. And now there is some that coming in, but it's completely insufficient. And therefore the ability and the humanitarian space to respond is not possible. And then lastly, well, it's not new. The healthcare services, the hospitals and many health centers are being actively attacked and bombed, and therefore the amount of care that is available is reducing on a continuous basis.
Dr. Paul Spiegel, thank you for bringing your insights.
050 Hotel, you're clear to drop. So we just airdropped 34 metric tons from this enormous IL-76 aircraft. That's enough food to feed 3,000 people for a month. And when we use these aircraft, it really is the last resort, because airdropping is the most expensive way of getting humanitarian food assistance to people in this country. And when we do it, it means we've run out of options. No roads, no boats, no barges, no helicopters are going to be able to get sufficient food to look after families in those areas.
यूनिवर्सल टेलीविजन को सब्सक्राइब करना ना भूलें। उसके बाद बेल बटन पे क्लिक करें और अपने कमेंट्स के सेक्शन में अपने कीमती जो ख्यालात का इजहार ज़रूर